All right, so like I said, the formal operational stage is the last stage that Piaget suggested contributes to development. There are other theories that we'll discuss in adult development that talk about how maybe there are things that are post-operational, but whenever Piaget first developed his theories, he basically stopped here and said that your cognitive development ends at the end of adolescence. One of the main things that is featured in formal operational stage is what's called hypothetico-deductive reasoning. And this is basically referring to the fact that adolescents have this ability to approach problems by developing hypotheses and then testing those hypotheses. They are able to hold multiple variables in mind at once and think about how all of those variables might contribute to a problem and therefore arrive at a more logical answer or conclusion than someone in the earlier stages would. So just as an example of this, they have this problem called the pendulum problem, where they are given this pendulum and they can vary different variables with the pendulum. They can change the weight of the end of it. They can change the length of the string. They can also vary the way that they sort of hold it initially to let it go. And basically they're just trying to figure out which of those variables contributes most to like the swinging of the pendulum as far as how far it'll swing or how long it'll swing. And an adolescent who is in this formal operational stage is able to realize that in order to figure that out, you basically need to isolate each variable. So you need to, for example, keep the length of the string constant while you're testing the different weights. Or you need to keep the weights constant while you test the different lengths of the string. If you give the same problem to someone who's in one of the earlier stages, often they will kind of combine multiple variables all at once to try and test them. So they may do like the short string with the heavy weight, and then they'll change to a medium string and also change the weight. And when you're changing multiple variables at once, it's really difficult to kind of isolate like which variable is most important. So that's one of the main things that's happening during this formal operational stage. They also develop gains in propositional thought, which is basically just the ability to think through like logical propositions that don't necessarily apply to the real world. So that helps with things like algebra and math skills. So for example, thinking about like, variables that we just label A, B, C, D, X, Y, and that don't have any real like tangible connections to the real world. And also like logical propositions, things like if/or statements, they're much better at reasoning through those than children in the earlier stages. Some follow-up research from Piaget's theories has shown that school-age children do show some glimmerings of this formal operational thought. So if you can sort of simplify the problem or simplify the situation or make it more relatable to the children. Also, if you can use props that make it more like a play situation rather than a test, they tend to show some of those abilities for like considering multiple variables and having propositional thought. But adolescents are a lot more competent. They're able to think through multiple variables like I talk about. And they also grasp ideas of like logical necessity, which is basically, again, coming back to some of those propositional statements. If you give someone a statement saying if this, then that, and then you ask them to reason from those thoughts, they understand that you can like consider that if this, then that statement as like a fact and then reason from that, even if that fact isn't like inherently true. And that's referred to as logical necessity. It's been shown that formal operations may not be universal, so some training and context contribute to the ability to develop formal operational thought, and schooling plays a really huge role in this, that formal training that you get on logical training, learning the scientific method, things like that. If you're in a school that teaches those or in a culture that teaches those, then you're more likely to develop formal operations compared to a culture or school that does not.